Welcome to episode 12. What does it mean to be a well-balanced person?
So we have the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual.
But then how do we grow those 4 areas?
When one thing is off kilter, when one thing isn't right, it affects the whole of us.
Really, our decisions are based upon who we believe that we are and where we see ourselves in the future.
That analogy of the swan, that on the surface everything's looking really smooth, but beneath the water your legs are going like this, trying to keep it all together. And I don't believe that's how we are created to live.
Hello and welcome to episode 12. My name is Gareth Morgan.
I am Leanne Morgan.
And this is the Winning Life TV podcast.
And here we are, another day, another question, another conversation.
And another opportunity to grow.
Absolutely.
Because this is about personal growth.
Absolutely always is.
And we want to help you provide the questions, but also some principles that can help you to apply them to your life and to unlock what you're truly capable of. Let me ask you, Mrs. Morgan, have you ever underestimated what you're truly capable of?
All the time, because that's what we do, I think, naturally, as human beings. We always underestimate what we're good at, what we can do. I think secretly, deep down, I always think, I want to do this thing or want to be that kind of person. But then we say, oh, no, I could never do that, because we want to avoid the disappointment of perhaps not achieving it or whatever. So, but yeah, always thinking that I'm, incapable of achieving certain things when I can. Of course I can do it.
Of course you can.
Of course I can. I mean, that's not true for everything.
Is there something is there something on your bucket list? I bet people talk about a bucket list, don't they?
Yeah.
And is there something that, might be a kind of just an adventure, or it might be just something you've always wanted to do but just never had the time or never had the money? Or is there something in the future that you think, I want to do that?
There's lots of things, actually, but I don't put them down as like a bucket list, because I think some of these things change as you grow and get older as well. So you think, the things I wanted to do when I was 20 are totally different to the things I want to do now. So mine's not a bucket list. Mine's like the things I'm going to do in the next year, or, what I would like to achieve in the next year. So I wrote some stuff down in the new year of what I wanted to do. Not resolutions. They were kind of a to-do list, I'd like to-do list. And one of them was like, I'd really like to climb over the O2 arena in London. I said I want to do that. So hint, hint, my birthday's in May. If you want to buy me a ticket, love, and come with me, obviously. And
so
do that.
Check social media around that time, and you will see Leanne walking over the O2.
Yes. I would also like to do another 10K run. Building back up to that. There was a time when I set myself up for the half marathon, but got an injury, so I couldn't do it.
So you mean a 10K run event? Not just a 10K run?
I mean, I put a 10K run. Maybe that was because I didn't want to commit myself to doing an event, but I'd like to do that again. So there's that. Amongst lots of things that I've kind of set for just this year, or, Yeah,
really, really good. Well, we, in this episode, are going to be looking at 4 areas of our lives that make us up as human beings in answering a question, which is connected to what we've just been talking about.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, we all have hopes and dreams. We all have things in the future we want to achieve.
But you didn't say yours.
Oh.
You see, you talked about me, about what I would like to do. What about you? What's about something that you've always wanted to do?
So just something in the next year?
Well, I reduced mine to the next year, didn't I?
Okay.
In time-wise. What about you? Maybe it could be something
far
in your
off
life.
into the future.
Or it could be something just this year.
I would love to travel across America.
Really? Are you going to take me with you?
Road trip style.
Are you going on your own?
Road trip style. That'd be amazing. Yeah.
How can I have been married to you for almost 23 years and not know that?
Because it's until you ask the question
specifically. I know, but do you really want to do that?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Oh.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
Come on a podcast with your husband, learn something new. So are you going to take me with you?
We'll see. Of course.
And bring in the dog and the kids.
Maybe we could go across America and then record episodes of the podcast at different points.
That would be amazing. Cool. I'd like to do
kind
that.
of different environment,
The
different
problem-
things that we see and experience.
I'm a bit of a hotel girl. That's the problem.
And they're normally like motels, aren't they?
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure what the difference is between a motel and a hotel. I think it's something to do with the
motel. I think in America it's a bit cheaper and well, according to the films, it's a bit dodgier, isn't it? A motel. But yeah, well, that surprised me. You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And on this podcast, I didn't know that's what you want to do. So we better get planning that, hadn't we?
We had. And in
getting on
order
with the next question.
to plan it,
Yes.
we're going to answer this question, which is, what does it mean to be a well-balanced person? What does it mean to be a well-balanced person? Lots of people talk about, how do I get work-life balance? That's a huge desire. It often crops up as a question if I'm in a conference or I've been asked it, how do I get that work-life balance? And, again, it's absolutely connected to if there's something out of the ordinary we want to do in the future, then we need to understand, okay, it's not just going to happen. We've got to plan it. And we've got to invest in ourselves in order for us to get there. And that's when it comes to looking at how we're put together as people. So there are 4 areas of us, Leanne. Do you want to just walk us through those 4 areas of us as human beings that we're going to unpack? Because to be balanced is to be aligned between these 4 places.
Well, I think everybody across the whole world would agree there is the physical part of us, our body.
We're well aware of that. We
can
look
see
at
each
it every
other.
day.
Some have different shapes, different sizes.
We all come in different shapes and sizes.
A variety, but we all have a physical, we all have a body element component to us. If you disagree with that, I don't think we can carry on this conversation. We all have the physical part. Then, of course, we have the kind of mental mind part of us. We're all very, very aware of our minds, our thoughts. Really, that's kind of the next component that we're made up of. And for some people, they might stop there and go, well, that's it, body and maybe a mind. Well, no, we're made also with a soul, which is the kind of seat of our emotions, our decisions, our feelings. And that's our soul part, which again isn't seen, but it is definitely there. And then again, some people might stop there and go, well, that's surely every part of us. But no, there's the real inner man, inner person, which is at the heart. And when the Bible talks about the heart of somebody, they're actually talking about the spirit of a person, the part that is totally unseen, but is so real. It's the real you, the real me, and that is our spiritual part. So we have the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual.
And when it comes to those 4 areas, I think you're right in saying, first of all, there's understanding what they are. That's really important. So awareness of the 4 of them. Understanding the importance and the role of all 4 in terms of unlocking our potential. But then how do we grow those 4 areas? Okay, so let's start with awareness, because like you've said, I think lots of people talk about body, mind, soul. I've heard that lots of times, but won't necessarily talk about spirit. So maybe let's just look at spirit first of all. For you, what is spirit?
Like I just said, that is the real part of me. It's the real part of you, like totally unseen, but that is the part that is for me connected and that comes alive now that I am, in relationship with God. And so that is the part where my beliefs are, my values are based on who I am in God, not in me as a person. That is my spiritual component.
And it's interesting because I think I've used in the Winning Keys, I think it was, used the spirit as an analogy to the SIM.
Yes.
In a phone. So here's your phone here. And so in Leanne's phone, as is the case in your phone, there is a SIM card. And that SIM card sits at the heart of this phone. Apart from when you put it in or take it out, you don't see it.
And they're getting smaller and smaller these days.
They're getting smaller. In fact, they've become digital. My watch has got a digital SIM now. So, but the reality is without that SIM, it isn't connected to the network. The network that unlocks the potential of this phone. Now, this phone can be used for things when it's not connected to the network. It can play games. You can take some pictures on it. But really, it's a phone. So at its core purpose, it needs to be connected to the network. And that SIM is what connects it. And I think you're absolutely right. That spirit part of us is like that SIM. And in fact, I used SIM, spirit in me. Like that is that core component that really, when I'm not connected to that higher purpose. Now, again, this is where your worldview on what that is. A lot of people will talk about the universe. I think probably today more than ever, there's a greater acceptance. Wouldn't you say that there is an otherness, that there is someone higher and greater, and people will kind of pin that on different things or on different entities, as it were. But there's an increased awareness, and I think there's probably multiple reasons for that. But what it is, I think there's a recognition that unless the spirit part of us is connected, then you can have a great healthy body, you can have a great healthy mind, and you can be in your soul kind of satisfied. But actually, what's the why? What's the purpose? What's this all about? And that's that SIM. That's that spirit part where our beliefs are. That if we don't have that, and I would actually say that to really unlock our soul, mind, and body, you need to have that core component in to unlock the potential.
Yeah, because the spirit is actually, like I said, when we're gone, when this kind of mortal thing has gone, it's the spirit that lives on forever and ever and ever. And that is the part that needs to come alive in God, because that's how he created us to be. And so if that's out of alignment, then actually we will never find satisfaction or feel well balanced, because at the very seat of who we are, it's out of alignment. And you're right, people do search for things because that's what we're created. We're actually created to worship, created to be connected to God. But obviously, people are on that journey searching for things. But that's where we get the kind of the picture of the spirit, the soul, the mind, and the bodies, because we're instructed as Christians to worship God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, which essentially are those four things. And people might argue, oh, well, you can't see your soul, can't see your... But the evidence of them being there is so real because of the way we work and this whole balance, that when one thing is off kilter, when one thing isn't right, it affects the whole of us, not just that component. And
I would say that the spirit part is the identity of a person.
Yeah.
The identity of a person is at the core of everything. And again, it's the part that we probably don't realize is driving our decisions each day. Really, our decisions are based upon who we believe we are and where we see ourselves in the future. And really, where you see yourselves in the future is based upon who you believe you are.
Yeah.
So this is so key. And again, like you've said, Leanne, when it comes to, for us, our relationship with God, if we're made in his image, then one way, and this is what I want to look at with each of these four areas, how do we invest in each four? How do we grow all four areas? When it comes to our spirit, that's where, really understanding who God is and spending time on that, and then recognizing that if I'm made in his image, then there's a direct connection and correlation between who he is and who I am. And the more I invest in that, the clearer I get my identity, and then that reinforces, that becomes the foundation of my life, of my everyday. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose a good question to ask is, how do we become this well-balanced person? Because naturally, we might focus on one area more than others because that's easier or more obvious or whatever, or we just prefer that. So how do we make sure that we are keeping, because it's not like spinning four plates. I don't believe that. That's too, that's not a great analogy, because that's under the impression that, we've got to strive. But actually, I believe when there's a balance, when we are looking after every area of our lives, there's a natural kind of flow that happens. So it's not about spinning plates and trying to keep everything going, but some people might feel that's what it's like. So how do we go about making sure that we have every area sorted? Hi everybody, and welcome to the Winning Life TV. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you've been listening to all the episodes so far. But we don't want to just talk at you, we want to have a conversation with you. So we want to share something really exciting that is coming up, and we're inviting you to it. Now Gareth, tell us, what is happening on February the 20th?
On February the 20th, Leanne, we're going to have an online environment where we talk about the MVP plan and the MVP journey that we are encouraging people to get on board with. Many people have downloaded the MVP plan and may look at it and think, okay, this is a really useful tool, but how do I really take it and maximize it and help me to break out of that repeating pattern that's stopping me making progress in my personal or professional life?
That's good. So if someone's listening to this and thinking, okay, great, is this for me? Who is it for?
This is for anybody who is hungry to grow, humble to learn, and wants to become the MVP in their environment, in the space where they operate day in, day out. In other words, that person who stands out so that they can start to shape and influence that arena to produce positive outcomes, to produce great results. And so we want you, if you believe in your heart that you are an MVP, you have an aspiration to achieve great things, then we want you to be in this environment.
So how is it going to work? People might be thinking, is it in person? Is it online? What's the setup?
So we're going to be on Zoom, and we are going to have that environment where we can interact, where we can break down into groups. And so we're going to introduce you into that environment and explain how it's going to be a regular environment going forward that people can be part of, because we really believe that there is more in you than you think. But we all need somebody to help draw that out of us. And that's what the environment is for.
Well, I'm really excited to be there. I can't wait to start it. So come and join us on Monday, 20th of February. All the details of how you can sign up for this will be at thewinninglife.tv. Make sure you're there. We'll be there. We're excited to start this community. So see you soon.
I think, again, like we said, it's understanding what each of the areas are. So if spirit is our beliefs, we've got to make sure, how, what time am I giving to exploring what I believe, why I believe it, and, who I am as a person. So that's the spiritual. The soul is emotional. So that is, how do I build emotional health? Well, emotional health is built through relationships. So again, what time am I investing in good quality relationships? And first and foremost, that's giving.
Yeah.
Or in fact, in all of these areas, they're unlocked through giving. It's not about how can I get in something and of value into each of these areas, because what I give determines what I receive.
Yes.
So emotionally, what am I giving out? So that's relationships. And then mentally, that's where our development takes place. The critical thinking part of us, working on problems, again,
I don't find that easy.
No, but if our assignment in life is about solving a problem, isn't it? So actually,
absolutely.
again, it comes down to what's the problem you're alive to solve. And that, again, that purpose comes out of, ultimately who you believe you are.
Yeah.
So the mental capacity and the physical capacity, obviously it's resistance that's placed upon the body that increases strength, and that physical exercise, relaxation, because you need stress and rest.
Yeah.
You need to go between those two places of stress and rest. And so how we build those is by saying, okay, well, what activities are in my diary? What is in my budget that's investing into those four areas? Because we can measure, I believe, how much we're investing in those four areas. And again, as part of the MVP journey, we look at this. We look at, okay, here's your plan based upon where you want to get to. But right now, are you under-investing in one of your four accounts? Your spirit account, your soul account, your mind account, or your physical account?
Yeah.
And we need to keep them topped up.
And that's really important because it's like not putting any money to a bank account expecting to get thousands out. But we all know that investment needs to happen or saving needs to happen. So if I had 4 accounts, but I only just put money in one of them, the other 3 are just going to stay empty. I mean, it might generate minimal interest, but really it's like expecting something from nothing when that just doesn't happen. It requires us to have that diligence of looking. And I do believe it is diligence because we've been given a responsibility to look after ourselves. This life is a responsibility. It's a gift. And, right, today you might be thinking, I don't feel like my life's a gift. I don't feel like being responsible anymore. But actually, it's our kind of time and our gifts and who we are. It's our responsibility to look after all those things so that we become that well-balanced person. We become, the person that's thriving, and like we talked about in our previous episode about a person of capacity, that can only come, I believe, when we actually become a well-balanced person, when we're looking at all of these areas. Because the problem is, I think there's been times where we've kind of, on the outside, which is the part that everybody else sees, we can look like we've got it all together. Oh, wow, they're doing so well. They're coping and they're thriving. But it's a bit like that analogy of the swan, that on the surface, everything's looking really smooth, but beneath the water, your legs are going like this, trying to keep it all together. And I don't believe that's how we are created to live, that we were just supposed to survive. Or, on the surface look like everything's fine, but beneath the surface where our mind and our soul and our spirit are an absolute mess. So it's so important that we take time to evaluate. And I remember a time back in 2019 where I was probably doing the spinning the plates thing of just keeping everything going, but not really paying attention equally to different things. And, it was heading into the summer, and I really felt in my heart, in my spirit, that we're talking about, I really felt this kind of nudge of, you're not paying attention to the right things. You're just keeping going. You're just, cracking on, not being a well-balanced person at all. But I ignored that nudge and put it to one side. Now, it wasn't just that, but I believe that contributed to a real mental health crisis that I felt that I went through at the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020, where it almost destroyed me. But that wasn't something that happened overnight. That was a long process of ignoring the balance in my life and not putting things in place. Now, that is not like I'm not scaring people and going, oh, if you don't get this sorted, you're going to have a breakdown. But for me, that's what happened because I continually ignored. I just kept working probably on what's seen and batting things off and putting things to the side, not giving time and thought and energy to what needed to be done. And when trouble came, I just tripped over and my mind just couldn't cope with the stress. And I recovered from that. But that took a time. I had to become well balanced. And now I have to keep a check on that on a regular basis. And some might say that that's a weakness, but I actually believe that's a muscle, that's a strength that now we learn how to evaluate, which again we talked about in our previous episode. Evaluation is really key. Where am I with this? How would I grade myself? How am I doing here? What's the fruit, the results that are coming out of this area? And do I need to pay a bit more attention? Am I, my thoughts haywire? Am I just allowing my mind to rule everything? Is it my emotions that are out of kilter? Am I not aligned? Is my spirit not aligned to who I really am? All of those things play a part in being this well-balanced person.
So it's interesting because I think there's probably people listening. In fact, I know there'll be people listening that have got that nudge. So a nudge that an area of those 4 areas, or one or more, is out of balance.
Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a sneaking suspicion that if left undealt with, it's going to have a negative impact. So for you, and again, we've all had those nudges, but why do you think we ignore the nudge? Like, what is it that prevents us dealing with it?
Because to deal with it would mean having to stop doing some of the things that I enjoy doing, perhaps to make room for that. Again, like I talked about before, it's evaluation. I don't want to stop Because in some ways you think if I stop, it's all going to fall apart, or, you know, it's all going to come crashing in. But
so it's avoidance.
It's total avoidance. Like, if I avoid it, it'll go away. Well, guess what?
The ostrich.
But those 4 things are not going to go away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, complete avoidance. And sometimes you think you can overcompensate your being with doing. So you can I'll just keep doing, and then I don't have to think about my being. But it's just exhausting, and that's what happens. Something gives way. It's like if I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I'm designed to walk on my 2 legs. If a person with 2 legs just always walks on one, it's going to give way if I'm not, you know, making my muscles right. So that's what it's like. It's almost like expecting to walk lopsided, or to try and work with, you know, drive a car with only 3 wheels. It's just not going to work. Everything has to be running smoothly. Now we know that they're not always in perfect sync. They're not always well balanced, but it's learning to assess it at that moment. We think something's not right.
Yeah, and I think it's like the analogy that's given of the plane that goes on a journey. You know, if a plane goes from London to Los Angeles, then, you know, in reality, it's over that course of that journey, there are thousands of adjustments that need to take place to the direction of the plane, because of obviously the wind and the turbulence, etc., take it off course. And so, you know, I heard a stat that, you know, 90+% of the journey, the plane is kind of out of alignment with where it's going. But because there are those thousands of tiny adjustments to bring it back into line, it arrives at its destination. So I think you're absolutely right. It's not a tick box thing. Okay, I've got into alignment, I can visit this next year, or even worse still, I'm on autopilot. It's just, I'm automatically going to get there. You know, there are adjustments to bring it into alignment, and providing that we stay aware of the importance of it and bring about those adjustments, then, like you said, we can arrive at that destination. We can bring those things into balance. And I remember somebody saying about your car, you know, like you where you put your fuel, the tank, you shouldn't let it go lower than a quarter of a tank.
Oops, that's me all the time. I leave it to you to fill up all the time, don't I?
Absolutely, yeah. I get a call saying there's 5 miles left and I'm 10 miles from the nearest petrol station.
But that actually helps with the analogy, because I just see putting petrol in the car as a real hassle. Like, I
avoidance.
Just don't want to do it. So I just think, I'll just leave it for Gareth to do. And this is complete, like, honesty here. It is, I think it's all right. Gareth will do it. But I remember once I did run out of petrol. Do you remember? I mean, it's quite some time ago, years ago. And the car broke down, and it was like, thought something was wrong. I just run out of petrol. But it's the same thing in our life. If we don't live in that other top half, we're going to come a cropper.
Absolutely. And I try every time it gets to a quarter of a tank. That for me is the zero. No, not
that's how I need to think.
The zero isn't the zero. The zero is 25%.
Oops.
And again, I think that kind of mentality in these 4 areas, our spiritual, our emotional, our mental, and our physical, we almost need to have what is that new zero. You know, don't run it to the edge, because number one, you might run out, and that's when it comes crashing down. So again, physically break down your health, mentally break down, you know, just your ability to cope, emotionally break down, affecting your relationships, spiritually break down, losing hope and purpose. So you can take it right to the wire and break down, or you may keep taking it to the wire and think, well, I'm still going. But what happens with the car is, if you go too low, it ends up dragging up the silt or the dirt in the engine, and then pushes that around the engine. So actually what happens is the car gets the worst out of that tank rather than the best. And so actually sometimes we can take it to the edge thinking, oh, do you know what, I've managed to sneak through that. Actually, no, it's affecting you. You're not bringing your best to what you do if you go to the wire in any of these 4 areas. To be a high performance person, to be an MVP, we have to look at these 4 tanks and almost have a dashboard where we stay aware of where are we with these 4, recognizing that these 4 all need investment in order to get us to where we want to get to in life. And again, that's part of our role, Leanne, isn't it? That's what we want to do. We want to help you on this journey of development, of bringing your highest and best that you've been created for. We want you to become great managers, great stewards of these 4 areas, knowing that it doesn't just affect you. It affects those you love. It affects those who are looking to you as an example, those who are imitating you right now. Like, am I producing a poor copy because, I think I can take it to the wire. I think I can trade off my friendships for my work life. Well, that's great. But when I've got my son watching me, am I happy to watch back in 10 years' time him do the same? Sometimes when it's us, we think, well, it's me. That's fine. But the reality is I'm producing a version of myself in those who are looking to me. So this is a huge subject, Leanne. And in our MVP journey, we talk in more depth about this. We kind of get hands-on in the nitty-gritty of how do we do this. But what would you say would be a great challenge to leave those our listeners, those that are right now, they realize I'm not stewarding these 4 areas well?
I think a big part of it is accountability. So actually, I am not very good on my own. None of us are. We need the people around us to help us. Just like I'll happily leave the car beeping away, telling me that I need fuel. Very often, before the kids have been in the car and said, what's that noise? Why is it beeping? And I'll say, oh, it's fine. It's got 30 miles left in it. But it's like that nudge of like, you need to put fuel in it.
And what are they going to do when they're older?
Hopefully copy you, not me. But yeah, I think it's important. I need, though, to be accountable to the right people around me that go, have you heard that, there's a nudge there, or this isn't quite right, or to say, right, what are you going to do? Because I know if I have to answer to someone else, I'm more likely to go through with it. And it encourages me. And then when I go through with it, I realise it works. And I fill up the car with petrol at a quarter of a tank, not at 0. All of those things. So I think accountability, maybe it's something that we need to look at. Who can I be accountable to? Who can I get into that coaching partnership relationship with that's going to help me? And obviously the MVP plan does help with that. We become accountable with one another. So that's the challenge for today.
So go away, have a think. Who is giving me that nudge so that I don't just ignore the nudge that is in me? Well, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. Remember, there is more in you than you think. So let's become great stewards of our spiritual, emotional, mental and physical health. And until next time, take care.
See you soon.
We hope that you enjoyed that episode. And if you enjoyed it, please go and subscribe over on all of our channels on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook, and not forgetting your favourite podcast platform. And if you head over to thewinninglife.tv, you'll be able to find all the resources available to you. Gareth has written several books which will help you on your discovery to building stronger and better lives. Come and join us for the next episode.